the future, discussing how we can work together to ensure Hamas is eliminated and ultimately restore peace to a very troubled region. It's been troubled, but what's happened in the last 4 years has not been good. I also strongly believe that the Gaza Strip, which has been a symbol of death and destruction for so many decades and so bad for the people anywhere near it, and especially those who live there, and frankly, who's been really very unlucky. It's been very unlucky. It's been an unlucky place for a long time. Being in its presence just has not been good, and it should not go through a process of rebuilding and occupation by the same people that have really stood there and fought for it and lived there and died there and lived a miserable existence there. Instead, we should go to other countries of interest with humanitarian hearts, and there are many of them that want to do this, and build various domains that will ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza, ending the death and destruction and, frankly, bad luck. This can be paid for by neighboring countries of great wealth. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
Well, there you have it. Our current president, Donald John Trump, the 34-time felon, I'm only belling with the 34-time felons, has said on Thursday that Israel would hand over Gaza to the United States after fighting is over, and the enclave's population was already resettled elsewhere, which he said meant that no U.S. troops would be needed on the ground. A day after worldwide condemnation of his announcement that he aimed to take over and develop the Gaza Strip into the Riviera of the Middle East, Israel ordered its army to prepare to allow the voluntary departure of Gaza Palestinians. So basically they said, look, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. Or more aptly, well, you can't go home, but you got to get the hell out of here, because they are home. Trump, who had previously declined to rule out deploying U.S. troops to the small coastal territory, clarified his idea on his Truth Social web platform earlier amid a tide of support in Israel for what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Trump's remarkable proposal. Defense Minister Israel Katz said that he ordered the army to prepare a plan to allow Gaza residents who wish to leave to exit the enclave voluntarily. He said this plan would include exit options via land crossings, as well as special arrangements for departure by sea and air. Trump's unexpected announcement on Wednesday, which sparked anger around the Middle East, came as Israel and Hamas were expected to begin talks in Doha on the second stage of the ceasefire deal for Gaza, intended to open the way for a full withdrawal of Israeli forces and an end to the war. Regional heavyweight Saudi Arabia rebuffed the proposal outright, and Jordan's King Abdullah, who will meet Trump at the White House next week, said on Wednesday that he will reject any attempts to annex the land and displace Palestinians. Egypt also weighed in, saying it would not be part of any proposal to displace Palestinians from neighboring Gaza, where residents reacted with fury to the suggestion. What effect Trump's shock proposal may have had on ceasefire talks remain unclear. Only 13 of a group of 33 Israeli hostages due for release in the first place have so far been returned, with 3 more due to come out on Saturday. 5 Thai hostages have also been released. Now, for Hamas's part, their official Bassem Naim accused Israel's defense minister Katz of trying to cover up for a state that has failed to achieve any of its objectives in the war in Gaza, and said that Palestinians are too attached to their land to ever leave. Displacement of Palestinians has been one of the most sensitive issues in the Middle East for many decades. Forced or coerced displacements of a population under military occupation is a war crime. Mind you, it is a war crime banned under the 1949 Geneva Conventions. Details of how much any plan might work have been vague. Israel's foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar, said different thinking was needed on Gaza's future, but any departures would have to be voluntary, and states would have to be willing to take them. A number of far-right politicians have openly called for Palestinians to be moved from Gaza, and there was strong support for Trump's push among both security hawks and Jewish settler movements, which want to reclaim land in Gaza used for Jewish settlements until 2005. Now, there's been a lot of talk about how modern Zionists have a hell of a lot in common with the people that they call their greatest enemy and the people who almost exterminated all the Jews in Europe, the Nazis. And when you look at this type of rhetoric here, it's impossible to not think of the Nazis' plan for the Jews during the 1940s. It was called the Madagascar Plan. The Madagascar Plan was a proposal from Nazi Germany to relocate all the European Jews to Madagascar. Okay? The plan was put into motion in June of 1940, but was postponed after the Nazis lost the Battle of Britain in September of 1940. The plan was permanently shelved in 1942 with the start of the final solution, which was the policy of the systemic genocide of the Jewish people. So when so many of us are critical of Israel and of a lot of their policies and a lot of their rhetoric, and say that this is the rhetoric and the policies of genocide, this is what we mean, folks. This is what we mean right here. And John Trump, our current president, 34-time felon, I'm only belling with the 34-time felons, is a lackey. He is a man who's gotten $100 million from Sheldon and Shelley Adelson. He is a man who has very overtly for many years been in the pocket of AIPAC and all the sort of pro-Zionist organizations. During Trump's first term in office, Netanyahu actually named a neighborhood in Israel after Donald Trump called Trump Heights. There is a Trump Heights in Israel. And Donald Trump brags about how he's willing to give Israel everything they want and do anything they want because they give him so much money. And so this is par for the course. Now, the unfortunate part is, and I've always said this, the best thing Donald Trump has going for him is that the people who are his biggest opponents are the worst opponents possible. They are either complete morons or they are the worst people living. So, of course, the Democratic Party, who could have taken this as an opportunity to be on the moral right side of things, and if we had a left-wing party in this country, an actual left-wing party, they would have. But instead, they chose to just say, well, don't you wish you had just voted for Kamala Harris now? As if the woman did not oversee the mass extinction of 600 to 700,000 Palestinians. No, we don't wish we had voted for Kamala Harris. I'm sorry. Like, I know y'all want us to be sorry that we didn't vote for, the genocide queen, but we're not. I'm sorry. I mean, the best case scenario in this situation is that Donald Trump is lying, which is always possible with Donald Trump. The best case scenario is that he's lying, that he's snowballing, that he's stalling, that he's not actually going to enact this plan, and he's just trying to butter up Netanyahu to keep the ceasefire going. He sends his Jewish gangster friend, business gangster friend, Steve Witkoff, back to the Middle East, where they're supposed to be working on the permanent ceasefire. That's the best case scenario. Okay? The worst case scenario was that Palestinians just keep dying by the hundreds of thousands, which was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's plan. Because they let 600, 700,000 people die and kept sending them weapons while the mass extinction of Gaza was happening. So there were no good outcomes for the Palestinian people, whether you're dealing with Trump, whether you're dealing with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. They really were in a no-win situation. Now, you could argue maybe now a lot of them may survive, even if they're, say, shuttled off to some other country, and they may stew and be angry about it for a long time, but they'll be alive, which was not what was going to happen without a ceasefire of some sort. So it really is all about recognizing that under this two-party duopoly that we have currently in this country, the two-party duopoly that we have in this country currently, there very rarely is ever a good outcome. Ever. There's virtually none. There's very few times when we can say, well, you know, if I vote for this party, they'll do the right thing. No, we don't have a party that does the right thing, at least not in the mainstream of the political spectrum. And so I really, my heart goes out to the people in Gaza and the Palestinian people in the West Bank, and to a lot of people. Oh, I mean, that's really all you can do at this point is pray and give good thoughts to them, because again, there really were no good options in this situation. They were either going to continue to be mass slaughtered under a Democrat, or they're going to be displaced into some other country by a Republican. Pick your poison, folks. That's all American politics is currently, is pick your poison. All right, folks, we got a stacked show, so I got to get on with it. Okay, when we get back, we're going to talk about the world's richest man completely taking control of our government and hollowing out our institutions. Who asked him to do this? Well, Donald John Trump. We'll be right back after these.